Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Hello. Welcome to Paraversal Universe, where all paranormal perspectives apply. Join paranormal historian and ufologist Kevin Malek and psychic demonologist Jennifer Malek as they navigate us through the different categories of the unknown and the unexplained, including ghosts and haunted places, cryptids and monsters, aliens and UFOs, theology and mythology, metaphysics, forbidden archaeology, urban legends and folklore, conspiracies, crimes, and corruption, with top analysis from the experts of these disciplines. If it's amazing, unusual, or mysterious, if it's bizarre, creepy, and fantastic, if it's unbelievable, paranormal, or supernatural, it's here on Paraversal Universe. Here are your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. Whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, welcome to Paraversal Universe, brought to you by the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited at the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center here in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek.
Hello, everyone.
Paraversal Universe is produced by Kat Hobson, voice of Fate Magazine Radio over at WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We're also heard on WCET 101.7 FM out of Columbia, South Carolina, High Point Radio 100.5 FM and 1620 AM out of New York and New Jersey, and the Rift Radio Network family based out of Lakeside, Virginia. Welcome one and all, and hello to everybody in the chat room. We look forward to your questions and comments as always. And the archive for the show will be available as well. Show archives from over the years can be found in various places on the web, including our archives-like page on Facebook called Paraversal Universe Show Archives. Also check out our guest promo page, Paraversal Universe Radio, for what's upcoming in the near future. We hope everyone is doing well, as always. It looks like the end of summer is around the corner, but it's still summertime and still beautiful. At least it is finally cooling off compared to what we were getting nailed with. But we have an amazing show coming up. We'll be talking with cryptozoologist Julie Rench from Monster X. But first, as always, let's do our shout-outs. Shout-outs go to those people who share our show banners on a regular basis or recently that we are aware of. We always appreciate it so much. Thank you kindly. Who do we have?
This week we have Walt Christos, Thoughts of Christos, Rhodey Speak, Dennis Koch, Jason Bland, Paranormal Soup, JJ Demolos, JJ Paranormal, Robert Bull, Metaphysical Bounce, Howie Odell from the Orion Effect, Kat Hobson at WBHM, Lawrence DeMeza, Jean Broida, Lisa Reynaga, The Rift, Sudan, Lori Kreslaw, Dr. Chuck Kennedy, Project PSI Institute, Ty Ward, Fate Magazine Radio, Clairvoyance, and Jock Brokus, Paranormal Daily News.
Thank you, everybody. Most appreciated. Very much so.
And hello to everybody in chat.
So, for this week's broadcast, we will be chatting with cryptozoologist Julie Rench, who's been investigating the possibility that Sasquatch exists for the last several years and resides in our home state of North Carolina, right outside of the Awari Forest. She is an active field investigator and is a member of the Carolina Cryptid Research Group. She is a show host on Monster X Radio and on The Shoulders of Giants with Thomas Steenberg, and has co-hosted and produces The Haunted Sea with Scott Mardis, Max Hawthorne's Marine Mysteries, and Adam Davies' show Undiscovered Beasts and Strange Phenomena. All killer shows, we must add. We're going to be discussing any and everything Sasquatch, including some audio Judy has brought for us, as well as some other cryptid stuff. It's going to be epic. Shall we bring her out?
Yes, let's bring her out.
Julie, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hi, guys.
Hi, welcome to Paraversal Universe.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me to the show. It's quite the honor. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
So, please ask our first-time guests to tell us how they got in their respective fields. And in your case, that would be researching cryptids. So,
yes.
Tell us how that all began.
Well, growing up, I had always heard stories about Sasquatch being in the woods of North Carolina. I had heard about them being in the woods, the forests, and the hollers of West Virginia, where my grandmother grew up. So I kind of grew up believing that these things could possibly exist. And then, of course, back when the legend of Boggy Creek came out, my mother took me to the theater to watch that, and I totally flipped out as a child. I don't think I slept for like 3 or 4 days. But that really got me interested in finding out more about this, the legend that people talk about. And, of course, everyone always thinks about it as being a Pacific Northwest thing, and there's actually a lot that happens on the East Coast, especially the Southeast states. So at the time when I grew up, I'm actually from North Carolina, but we moved to Ohio for a very long time, and Ohio actually has its share of cryptids and Bigfoot research and researchers. So when I was living in Ohio, that's when I became interested in really finding out, what was going on with the tales I was hearing about, and people, saying that they're actually in Ohio. So I reached out on Facebook, and I found Paul Hayes from the Genasqua Project. So I hooked up with Paul and, helped him with this Facebook group, and that's kind of how I got into all of this, actually, and doing formal investigations. So that was probably going on 5 years ago, since I've actually been doing investigating, going to sites. So that's kind of how it all started. A shout out to Paul Hayes from the Genasqua Project. I mean, he just kind of put me under his wing and explained to me how to go out and take reports and talk to eyewitnesses. So that's kind of how it all started.
Did you have, or have you had any experiences as far as going out and looking for Bigfoot or investigating?
Yeah, see, that I had spent a lot of time in the woods growing up, but I really didn't think about Sasquatch being out there. Or, again, it was always a Pacific Northwest thing. But then when I started investigating, there was a place in Ohio that was actually 20 minutes from my doorstep that there was an ongoing investigation of a Sasquatch that had been allegedly seen on this man's property 3 different times. So that kind of floored me because that was only like 20 minutes away from my house. And of course, I hooked up with him, and we started, my hubby and I started going over there, Jeff, to interview him and look around and do some investigating, and spent some hours and some evenings and some nights on the property. We did find some interesting things on his property. There was this thing was massive. It was like overnight this thing was built on his property because it wasn't there the day before. And the following day he goes out and he sees this, like a big dome made of branches and all kinds of broken, like, branches and leaves and debris and stuff, and it was about 20 feet in diameter and about 5 feet in height. And there was one end where it looked like something had been going in and out of it. So that, he wasn't sure what that was about. And, of course, I went inside of it and looked for hair, looked for anything I could possibly find in the area. But we were never able to determine exactly what built it or why. And, I don't want to assume anything. But those are the kind of things that was going on at that property. And then he also said one night it sounded like an elephant was going through his woods out there. And the next day he went out and there were birch trees that had been thrown up and into hardwood trees horizontally, way up on top. And why something would do that, I don't know. He didn't know either, but that was very interesting, and I did take some photos of that. The birch trees were not from that particular area. That section of the woods was all hardwood, and there were no birch, so it came from a completely different place and was thrown up there. That was kind of interesting. Not sure why anything would do that, but we don't know exactly why these things do what they do anyway. So, but that was really my first investigating, was at this gentleman's place, and he was actually out there one day, and he saw these bones that had been, it looked like deer leg bones with the hooves still attached, and they were stacked up against a tree, up and down, stacked up against a tree. And he was standing there looking at, trying to figure out where they came from and why they were stacked against this tree. And all of a sudden, from his left, this rather large branch came flying at him, and it hit him in the back of the head and knocked off his baseball cap.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was like, okay. And this was after he had seen the creature allegedly twice. So that's when he became concerned because, he wasn't sure if it was going to be more aggressive.
Right.
Following that, he started keeping his kids closer to the house, was kind of concerned about that and had letting his kids run back because, he had several acres back there in a rural area, and he was afraid to let them just wander around the property after that. So we did go back there. I found some tracks one time that were rather small. They were barefoot tracks. They were smaller, and they were in the mud, but what was weird, it was only like 4 tracks, and they came out of the wood line and this muddy area and then back into the wood line. And I asked him, I said, has your daughter or your son been out here in the woods walking around? And he's like, no. So it was just kind of weird how whatever or whoever was walking around on his private property had come through quite a bit of an area where there were a lot of raspberry bushes, and I know myself personally, I wouldn't be walking around that barefoot, but it just seemed really kind of unusual. But he did find some tracks that were 18 inches long, and he documented those and took pictures, showed those to me. He did have the BFRO go out there and do an investigation back when it all started. This had gone on for 3 years. So, we were able to determine that there was certainly something moving around on his property that was unusual. When he saw it, the third time he saw it, it was actually standing out behind his children's swing set, and it was nighttime, and it was staring into their living room windows.
Yikes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like they were in there watching TV, and he went outside to take a smoke break on the back deck, and when he did, he looked over, and it was standing there behind that swing set, staring in at the house. So I don't know, since then I've moved to North Carolina, moved back to North Carolina, so I don't know if he ever did end up moving from that area, but I know he was getting pretty concerned about them being so close to the house.
Right.
With the 2 children and the dog there. So that was kind of my first experience with somebody that's actually had them on their property. I had not seen one on his property, so I can't, verify that indeed they were there, but he sure did have a lot of written, documented experiences, and the footprints, and BFRO was out there, and I think they took some of the some samples with them, and some of the tracks with them. They did plastered some casts. I think they took those with them. So I often wonder, now that I am not there anymore, if he ever did decide to move from that area. But that was really odd, because it wasn't out in the major forests of Ohio. We're talking a rural area in central Ohio that was in Miami County. So that was kind of a surprise that they had been seen around there. And it wasn't the only area they had been seen in Miami County. And that's where I lived, was in that county.
They usually don't come into, city or village per se, but there are many reports of them being right on the outskirts of towns. The one experience I had in my life happened, I'd say, not 15 minutes from the closest Walmart. Just right down the county road, 10 minutes and so yeah, that's so do you feel like Bigfoots are aggressive?
Well, I think that
or at least according to all the reports that you see, because you do see a lot of reports, and I know you work with Monster X, and they are all the time bringing in reports. And actually, should we?
Yeah. Why don't we take our first commercial break now?
And then we can come back to that.
Yes, and we can continue the discussion. This is Paravirtual Universe Radio. You are listening to. We'll be right back with our guest for the next segment.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The opinions of hosts and guests do not necessarily reflect the opinion of this network.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
To the believer, the evidence is overwhelming. To the skeptic, there will never be enough. Hello everyone. Join Kevin and Jennifer Malek, the host of Paraversal Universe, every Friday here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM and The Rift. Log on or tune in as they check out the mysteries found within the 8 categories of the unknown and unexplained, including ghosts and haunted places, aliens and UFOs, theology and mythology, cryptids and monsters, urban legends and folklore, conspiracies, metaphysics, and forbidden archaeology. Listen as Kevin and Jennifer interview the top minds in their respective fields as they share theories and information regarding these unsolved mysteries. For future show and archive information, one can find Paraversal Universe on Facebook, Twitter, and MeWe under various Paraversal Universe headings. So, for excellent talk radio about the unknown and unexplained, check out Paraversal Universe, where all paranormal perspectives apply. Brought to you by the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society, Ltd., and produced by WBHM-DB.com.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back from our first commercial break, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM, High Point Radio, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek, and we'd like to take a minute to thank everybody who makes Paraversal Universe possible, including graphic art director Lawrence D. Miza, music theme by Matt Stenz, announcer Frank Lee, producer and owner at WBHM Kat Hobson, also to Howie Odell and Elisa Renaga and the Rift family, and to Michael Vera at WCET-FM. Thank you all for carrying our content and working together on our behalf and the behalf of our audience everywhere. And, of course, a huge thank you to God in heaven, whose strength beyond strength is stronger than all, for granting us this wonderful show and opportunity to be here with you all.
Amen.
In appreciation to all the various platforms we are on, including iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Twitch, YouTube, Dailymotion, TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Blog Talk, Podbean, Google Play, Mixcloud, and Paranormal Radio Livestream app, which is streamed and restreamed from various other outlets all over the world via the internet. This segment of Paraversal Universe is brought to you by the UFO Wisconsin Research Team, Wisconsin's alternative to MUFON, and also by the Paranormal Daily News. We now have a page on their website dedicated to Paraversal Universe, including the Paralogian Report, where our latest episodes are listed and linked. How cool is that? This is Paraversal Universe, and we are speaking with cryptozoologist Julie Rench from Monster X. Are you with us? So, right before we went to break, I believe I asked how you with the reports that have come in. We met because you've been with Monster X, and I was on the show a few years ago, and that's how we met. And I know they take in a lot of reports, as well as what you guys take in North Carolina. So you're always hearing new reports, new experiences. What do you like? I guess weighing all that out, what are your thoughts on Bigfoot regarding attitude or aggression versus being passive or non-aggressive?
Well, based on here in North Carolina, I moved back here about, well, it was March 2017 when we moved back here. And ever since I got back home, because to make a long story short, my family came here from Britain in 1765 in the area where I live at now, and they helped settle this area, and we're still here. So we have a long history of, ancestors being from the area. And over the course of time, I had heard about Sasquatch being in North Carolina and being in this area. There was a well-known report that happened in a small town not far from me where these brothers lived, and they were fishing at a pond one day, and they heard some movement, and they looked over, and there was this creature covered in hair that was standing in the pond just looking at them like it was surprised that they were there, and came in and looked over and saw them and acted surprised that it was there, that they were there. And where it was standing was over their head, basically. The level of water would have been over their heads. So they knew something was quite unusual, and they took off and left everything behind, all their fishing equipment and everything, and they went back the next day to get it. But, I remember hearing that story, different stories about them along the Appalachian Trail, which is the western part of North Carolina. Now, as far as aggression goes, a lot of my experience with people who investigate here in North Carolina has to do with the Uwharrie Forest, which I happen to live right outside of. David Pardue, who is the team founder of the research group that I'm in, he has spent 10 years researching in the Uwharrie Forest. And as far as aggression goes, it seems that they do bluff charge people over there. They are known to throw rocks quite a bit, mess with people in the tents. But as far as like any physical altercations or anything like that, I haven't heard of any, that I'm aware of. But I do know that they're certainly most likely capable of it, since they are a unknown creature. Every creature has the capacity to become aggressive. So, I don't like to intimidate these things myself personally.
That's awesome.
To intimidate.
Yeah, the whole provoking thing is not something we're into either.
No.
Or you know what I'm saying? How we approach things, we try to do very respectfully.
Right, and that includes being respectful of the land that they're on.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's how David and the team that he was with prior to this, they had the best luck if they would just go out there, hike in a couple hours to a very remote spot, build a camp, build a fire, and just sit there and chill out. And they would usually get very curious and come to them. So he has seen them several times over there. I know several people who have, and many of them prefer to walk on all fours. in this area. A lot of reports of them being on all fours.
That's interesting.
And that just creeps me out. The whole on all four thing just creeps me out. But they do. There are stories where they have taken people's dogs. Down here in the South, there are stories of them breaking the chains of like pit bulls, and all that's left is half a chain where the pit bull was. I know that they have found dogs decapitated. They have found deers torn to shreds, their hides ripped off, thrown up in trees. I mean, those kind of things I know they have seen and found and documented. And again, if these things are omnivorous, then yeah, they probably do go after prey, and a dog would be kind of easy pickings, because I don't know many people that would walk up into a yard that has a pit bull in it and try to get the dog off that chain.
Well, and that's how we feel about the Sasquatch too. Is that they don't seem overly aggressive, but like if you were to mess with them, then you could be asking for more trouble than you care to have. You know what I'm saying? Because they're big and strong, and you hear stories of them like carrying off pigs and stuff, and jumping over fences with pigs and things. And
well, that, and they're protective of their land. I mean, these forests are basically their homes.
Yeah, and I don't think that there are these furry forest friends that people like to talk about. I think they just want to be left alone, and so that's what we try to not chase after them, so to speak. If they throw enough rocks at you, it's time to go, because you don't want to not leave, because that's kind of disrespectful. I think the reason why they're throwing the rocks at you and they're throwing things at you is to get you out of there.
So, we have a question for you from the chat room. Why is Bigfoot flat-footed? Many footprint castings seem to show this. Modern medicine has shown the importance of having arches in the foot of bipedal primates like humans to reduce stress on the legs and feet.
Yeah, I mean, they're allegedly supposed to have a mid-tarsal break in them, and I don't know if they're saying why are some of the casts that come back just flat. Is that what they mean, like instead of having some type of arch in them or a break?
I would assume there's probably variations.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you got which ones are hoaxed versus which ones are real.
Right. Yeah. Right, and there are a lot of hoaxed castings out there. Right. We've all seen them, but I think that it would depend on the individual itself. It's body mass, its weight, what the terrain is that it's walking on, what the print was left into. There's difference between walking through clay versus sand versus mud. I have not seen any two tracks that are identical as far as different areas go. So, and a lot of track casts that I've seen, it's clear that the toes are actually somebody's thumb.
Right.
To the material to make it look like toes. So, the most important thing I think when looking at a track is to try to find dermal ridges in that material, because those are harder to fake.
Right. And talking about feet reminds me of the Patterson-Gimlin film. And it does, because if you watch the film, you can see the bottoms of its foot for a few split seconds or whatever. Do you? I guess first question is, what do you think of the Patterson-Gimlin film? Do you think it's authentic, or do you think it's not?
Well, that's a good question because I kind of tend to go with the known facts about that particular clip. There's a lot of history to it. There's a lot of opinions to it based on who you ask. I think the most interesting thing to me when watching that film and some of the more recent film where they've been able to really get more detail, you can see muscle flexing in the leg. You can see muscle flexing in the side, the back, the arm. So at least that's what it looks like to me. Is actual, different.
I noticed that too on the newest one they just came out with, maybe like last month.
Right, because that one you can really see the leg muscle.
And I thought, my thought was either A, that's, like you said, muscle, because you can see ripples and stuff, or B, if that was a costume, they hit the lighting and everything just right, just perfectly, and it just happened to simulate that. Then you got to ask yourself, well, what are the odds of that, right? So, but yeah, anyways. So
I mean, there's so much. It's been over 50 years, and it's still being debated. I think the one thing that gets me is people that have actually encountered these things. When I talk to them, I always ask them, "What is it? Did it look like the creature in the Patty film?" And I'd say 60 to 70% of the time they say yes. And then the other times it's, no, it had more hair on the face, or no, it wasn't as big around at the waist, or, but when you're talking 60 or 70% of the people say, yeah, it looked just like it, that's pretty good odds. With the hair not being in the eyes and that sort of thing. And that seems like a lot of times that's a West thing. A lot of the sightings from the West, they tend to look more like the Patty figure than we have over here.
Yeah, it seems like
I don't know if it's real or not. I mean, I want to believe that it's real. I want to believe that Bob Gimlin's telling the truth. But there's just so much controversy on it. My gut tells me it's probably real.
Okay.
Somebody brought up a really good question in chat, and this is going back to the authentic castings that people have found. When it comes to authentic casts, wouldn't authentic and real casts have DNA on it?
Well, you would think that they would be testing for that by now. I don't know, anyone personally that has been able to obtain DNA off of a track. I think the thing they need to look for would be hair. I know they have touch DNA now, and that is rather expensive still. But that's a good question, because it would be really cool if they could do touch DNA on an actual track.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, because you don't really need a whole lot to test on a touch DNA versus like a hair sample. The problem with that, though, is who's going to pay for it, and then what are you going to be able to tell by that DNA? There's no specimen to compare it to, so it seems like every time something comes back that's been tested, it comes back as unknown primate or something mixed with human, and it would be nice. I can tell you that touch DNA could really tell you a lot more about the ancestry of what the DNA sample came from. So, yeah, I always think about that when when I'm out there and I have a rock thrown at me or something like that. I'm thinking, if I had the money and the means, this rock would go into a lab to be tested for touch DNA. But the best they're going to tell me is that it's unknown DNA. And science is not going to take it serious until we find an actual specimen to compare that DNA to. And that's just my opinion.
Right. And plus you have the whole factor of some people submitting possible DNA and having their submissions lost, misplaced. Is it possible they're not even all the time receiving proper data? Just because, if the things out there that are unknown and unexplained, one could easily speculate that these kind of things get covered up for various reasons, and that things that are unknown and unexplained in this day and age are that way by design because they want to keep it that way. They have the answers to these things. I think our government probably knows what's going on with a lot of this stuff. But for whatever reason, they have just decided to keep a lid on it. That's my personal take on that. But be that as it may, why don't we take a commercial break?
Okay, and with that, you are listening to Paraversal Universe Radio. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
To the believer, the evidence is overwhelming. To the skeptic, there will never be enough. Hello, everyone. Join Kevin and Jennifer Malek, the host of Paraversal Universe, every Friday here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on WCEC-FM and The Rift. Log on or tune in as they check out the mysteries found within the 8 categories of the unknown and unexplained, including ghosts and haunted places, aliens and UFOs, theology and mythology, cryptids and monsters, urban legends and folklore, conspiracies, metaphysics, and forbidden archaeology. Listen as Kevin and Jennifer interview the top minds in their respective fields as they share theories and information regarding these unsolved mysteries. For future show and archive information, one can find Paraversal Universe on Facebook, Twitter, and MeWe under various Paraversal Universe headings. So, for excellent talk radio about the unknown and unexplained, check out Paraversal Universe, where all paranormal perspectives apply. Brought to you by the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society, LTD, and produced by WBHM-DB.com.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back from our second commercial break. This is Paraversal Universe on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on WCET-FM, High Point Radio, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek. Before we get back to the show, we want to tell you all that we are also on MeWe and Twitter. Our like and group pages on Facebook are under various headings as well. Having said that, check out our society's like page on Facebook, the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, as well as Jennifer's like page, Jennifer Malek, Psychic Demonologist. Leave a like if you like what you see. We always appreciate it. This segment is brought to you by the book Trail of the Sasquatch, A Shaman's Journey, by cryptozoologist and Iroquois shaman Don Young, who is also a member of the NWPS. Check out his Facebook group pages, Kindred Forest and Indigenous Americas. Any comments for this week's show can be addressed in the live chat room. Let's get back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are speaking with cryptozoologist Julie Rench. And on this segment, we are going to start it off. Julie, if you can explain to us your about your recording project, and then from there we can get into some of the audio that you brought.
Okay, fantastic. Like I said earlier, I moved to this location March 2017. We have a farm right outside the Uwharrie Forest, about 10 acres, very rural, very forested, not a whole lot of neighbors. When we moved in here, this property had been empty for over a year, so we had quite a few projects that we needed to get done when we first moved in here. So I wasn't able to sit out in the fire pit. You know, I'm a very outdoors kind of person, and my favorite thing to do is chill out by the fire pit, listen to the sounds of the night, be one with nature, if you will. And I had not had a lot of time to do that when we first moved in here. So several months later, we finally got to a point where I could actually relax, go outside, sit in the fire pit. And when I started doing that, I started noticing that there were some very unusual sounds coming from right around the perimeter of my property, which is all forested. There's a pond over here to my northwest. Not my pond, but it belongs to another property over there. But I noticed there was a lot of strange sounds, and I had been working with David Ellis from the Olympic Project out there in Washington with other people's audio that they had sent me. I would forward it on to him, and he would analyze it. And when I say analyze it, I mean he would run it through software that you can actually look at the audio and a spectrograph and compare it to known animal sounds from that area. You could compare it to coyote. You're looking at the signatures of the sounds, and every species has its own particular signatures that seem to pop up more than others with their normal sounds that they make. So you're able to, distinguish a pattern of what an average coyote would look like or what an average elk would look like. So he was doing this for other people. I sent him a clip that was about 2 minutes long that I had taken at my fire pit with my cell phone, a video. And it was when a group of coyotes were going off, and there was something mixed in with those coyotes that was just crazy sounding. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to send this to David Ellis, and he can analyze it for me and send me a message back and tell me that, oh, that's all just coyote, it's all good, nothing happening over there. Well, that's not what happened. He gets back with me and he goes, I think you might have company. And then he says, hey, how about, you've sent stuff to me for other people. How about, since you're right there at the Uwharrie, why don't you do an audio project with me? And he explained to me that what I do is I put the digital recorder out at night and let it run. Whether I'm out there or not, I let it run until in the morning. So that's how this all started. I started doing the audio project. And give a little bit of history about where I live. This area has the most documented sightings of the whole entire state of North Carolina. Finding Bigfoot team was actually here, and this was their first season, episode 3. they covered the Uwharrie Forest.
Oh, really?
So it has quite the history, a lot of sightings, a lot of people have seen them in and around the Uwharrie Forest. So over the course of time, between David and I going through all of the audio, I've recently started to learn how to analyze it myself. I now have the proper software to analyze it, and I've been doing some of my own, processing, and then I'll send that forward to David for review. And plus, I send a lot of other stuff to him that I haven't reviewed because there's just so much. I mean, you're talking 8 hours of recording a night or more. So between the two of us, we have come up with over 500 different clips of interest in the last about almost a year now.
Wow.
Yeah, from my house here. And, I'll talk more about the investigation that we're having here. It's not just an audio investigation. We're doing boots on the ground investigation, but for now we'll focus on the audio. So what I sent to you is a compilation of some of the better, as David calls them, most interesting clips that I have found, and this was probably the last audio from this grouping was probably about 5 months ago. So I do have a lot more audio from since this was recorded. A lot more interesting things as well. But this at the time was the grouping of things that really seemed to match a lot of what other people out in the field had been sending him as well, from properties where there were Sasquatch sighted, where there were long-term investigations. So, my audio that I sent to him matches a lot of the other audio that's sent to him that doesn't match known animals. So David has compiled different categories, and the first one that I'll go ahead and have you guys play is the compiled short vocals, as he calls them. And these are going to be looped. Each sound is looped 3 times, and then they're going to be back-to-back together. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're from the same recording. It could be from actual different months over the course of time. But what you're going to hear is the same sound repeated 3 times, and then another sound repeated 3 times, and so forth. So the short vocals are, there's a lot of interesting ones on there. And now keep in mind, a lot of the stuff I hear when I'm at the fire pit out there by myself in the dark, no one around but me, and sometimes it's, I'll stay out there by myself sometimes till like 1 o'clock in the morning or so, but then if I'm by myself, I usually come in around 1 or so, because after 1, it can get pretty harrowing when you're by yourself. So what you're hearing here is a lot of audio that begins after the sun goes down until wee hours of the night. Some of this stuff I've heard when I was out there, and some of it, it's caught on audio that I did not hear in real time. So if you want to go ahead and play the compiled short vocals first, and then I can maybe explain something if anybody had any questions from the chat room, or if you guys had questions.
Okay, let's do that. Oh, okay. Alrighty. So we just heard the first one. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, the compiled short vocals, there are some vocals in there that are repeated often, that are caught on the audio often. Those are just some of the more compelling, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They do not match known canines. We do not have elk in the area. We do not have wolves in the area. And also, when I will be playing another category called long vocals, and you will actually hear some of the same, very similar vocalizations from the short vocals list that carry over into the long vocal list, which means that the whatever's producing that vocal is actually doing different lengths of these calls over different periods of time. So it sounds like a communication thing going on.
Right.
Yeah, and you can actually, at least I can and David can, have been able to discern the different vocalizers, their different sounds, meaning there's more than one source of these sounds.
Right. That's it. Like a conversation.
Yeah.
Or communication, like you said.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's really that's very interesting. So why don't we take
our next commercial break?
Yeah, before we play the next clip.
Right.
We'll come back and then play the next one.
There's still more to come. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
The autopsy is ready. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. A week after the death of registered sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in a federal prison, sources say the medical examiner's findings are expected to be released later today. The Washington Post has reported that Epstein had broken bones in his neck.
When you speak to certain medical examiners, they say, well, some of that could be because of a hanging. For sure, you can see those injuries, but some of that could also be seen in homicidal strangulations.
Fox's Brian Yennis. Multiple agencies are investigating Epstein's apparent suicide. He had been taken off suicide watch.
When you speak to the experts, they'll tell you being on suicide watch for more than a week or two is pretty rare. But the fact that there was no cellmate and that cellmate was taken out the night before this incident happened, of course, you're going to have questions about that.
The actions of the warden and the guards also remain under scrutiny, including reports that guards fell asleep, then falsified logs. Federal investigators are trying to figure out why the plane carrying NASCAR driver Dale Earnhardt Jr., his wife and young daughter, crashed and caught fire yesterday afternoon. Fox's Steve Harrigan is at the crash site in northeast Tennessee.
The charred wreckage of that six-seater Cessna plane is on Highway 91. It was supposed to come in for a landing at 3:40 yesterday afternoon. It was pretty good weather out. Instead, that plane went through the runway, across a field, through a fence, and basically exploded in flames on a 5-lane road. Officials have been examining the scene since early morning. Their initial conclusion is that the plane suffered from a hard landing.
The family and the pilots are all out of the hospital as the NTSB investigation continues. The week-long roller coaster goes up again on Wall Street. The Dow up 307 points at the closing bell. This is Fox News.
At TD Ameritrade, they're reinventing how you invest. Whether you want to place a trade on Facebook Messenger or get market news from your smart speaker, TD Ameritrade's technology is designed to bring the market to you. See what's new at tdameritrade.com/innovation. Member SIPC.
One of 2 American congresswomen denied entry for an official visit to Israel is rejecting an alternative plan to visit her Palestinian grandmother in the West Bank.
Representative Rashida Tlaib says she will not visit Israel after receiving that humanitarian visa by the Israeli government. Tlaib applied for humanitarian access after being denied a traditional visa just yesterday alongside Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
Fox's Trey Yingst in Jerusalem.
Now, in order to receive approval, Tlaib had to sign a letter to Israel's Interior Ministry saying she wouldn't promote a boycott of Israel during her visit. She signed that letter, but then faced major backlash online from Palestinians who said she was giving into the demands of the Israeli government.
Tlaib accuses Israel of trying to silence her and her family and treating her like a criminal, also tweeting that visiting her grandmother in such oppressive conditions would violate everything she believes in. Congresswoman Omar has accused the Israeli prime minister of acting under pressure from President Trump. California's education chief wants a do-over of a controversial ethnic studies program.
The new ethnic studies curriculum was drafted by a committee of teachers and professors appointed by a state education board. And in it, they tell students to critique empire and its relationship to things like white supremacy, cis-heteropatriarchy, capitalism, and other forms of power and oppression. The Jewish Legislative Caucus, consisting entirely of Democrats, said the omission of anti-Semitism and harsh criticism of Israel are glaring and clearly biased. Hindu, Armenian, and Korean groups have asked why they're left out. Former Governor Jerry Brown signed a law in 2016 creating the ethnic studies curriculum. Now lawmakers are debating making it a requirement in high schools and Cal State universities. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Recapping the rally on Wall Street, the Dow up over 300 points, the S&P and the NASDAQ also gaining more than 1%, but all three still finished the week lower. Lisa Brady. This is Fox
News. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Paraversal Universe, now in our second hour, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. Also heard on the Rift Radio Network out of Virginia, WCET-FM out of South Carolina, and High Point Radio out of New Jersey. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek, coming to you Rylander, Wisconsin, here in the USA at the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center. You can always enjoy excellent talk, fringe talk radio for awesome and informative radio shows about the paranormal, supernatural, esoteric, and Fortean topics on this network and affiliate platform websites. Not only our show, but many other good shows about different facets of the unknown and unexplained. Much to listen to and much to enjoy. Stream live on TuneIn, iTunes, or the Paranormal Live Stream app, available from Android app and the iTunes Store. And this segment is brought to you by the Supernatural magazine, where our articles can be read. And all right, back to Paraversal Universe. We are speaking with cryptozoologist Julie Rench. And to start off this segment, it was noted that some of the sounds could be other things. And so we were talking during the break, and I know you wanted to address that. So...
Yeah, absolutely. The audio that I shared with you guys that you're playing, now, I'm not saying that these sounds are all made by a Sasquatch, because first of all, I haven't seen it actually make these sounds, so that would be quite the stretch to say, oh yeah, I know that for sure this is a Bigfoot. What we are saying, however, is that they are unusual sounds that, you know, having been compared through the software, the spectrograph software, those signatures are unlike your usual suspects. Like, they do not produce the same type of pattern a canine would. And also, some of this audio that you're hearing, you're also going to hear dogs mixed in with it. So there's obvious dogs in some of this audio. And that's not what I'm referring to when I'm talking about the unusual sounds. So you will hear, known sounds. There's also might be some coyote mixed in with some of this. But, the unusual sounds, I would only consider them unusual after they've been analyzed by David Ellis, in a spectrograph situation where he can rule out certain things. But now we cannot rule in that they're absolutely from Bigfoot either, because that would not be very scientific. Because we don't have known samples from a Sasquatch creature that we can compare them to. We just have different libraries of known sounds that you can compare it to, that you can actually obtain from the internet or from other software.
Exactly. Rightfully so. So we have a second clip. Why don't you
take us into that?
Yes, take us into that, and then we can play it, and then we can discuss it further.
All right, so this is going to be, again, looped 3 times and different back-to-back sounds. It's about 2 minutes and 43 seconds long. There's going to be some very long vocalizations that some of them I've heard while I was at the fire pit. Some of them were really close. Some of them you can feel go right through you when you're sitting there. You can actually feel it. That was another thing that I found odd about some of these, was the actual, you can feel it go through you. It's hard to explain unless you've had that experience of hearing something that rattles your chest. But again, these were all recorded over the course of the last year prior to 5 months ago. So, and if there's any questions from the chat room, I'd be glad to take them. So if you want to go ahead and play it, some of them are self-explanatory.
All right, let's roll that. Wow. All right. It's clear that with some of the stuff I'm hearing, there is, what would you say, lungs. There's, like, voice, like something that we wouldn't expect from other forest animals. That's just my impression on that.
Yeah, that gave me chills hearing that.
Yeah. It's sometimes it can be kind of unnerving because you're not sure what the source is, and it moves. Like it'll start to my northwest, and then 10 minutes later, it's directly to my north, making all kinds of racket and yelling and screaming, the long vocals, and then it moves away to my northeast. I mean, it's not coming from just one area. Whatever this is mobile. The last two clips on that, the one that sounds like there's a rather large percussive sound at the end, almost sounds like a wood knock. And I've got a lot of that as well. What they deem as wood knocks, that they feel that these creatures do that for whatever reason. Can't be sure. Again, we don't scientifically know. We can't verify it. But the very last vocalization on here was one that I heard when I was at the fire pit by myself, and it sounded like it was probably no more than 200 feet away from me, coming out of the dark. And that one literally scared me to death. I came inside the house and left everything out at the fire pit, called Shane Corson from Monster X Radio, and I said, "You're going back outside with me to gather my stuff. You're staying on the phone with me," because I don't know what that was. So I made him stay on the phone with me while I went, because, I was by myself. My husband was in Ohio. I mean, literally by myself out here. So I made him stay on the phone with me while I went and gathered all my stuff up, my cell phone and everything else that I had left out there. And I came in for the night, that night. But, I always welcome people to send me their audio if they have similar audio that they have recorded, for comparison. I'm all about receiving people's audio and having it analyzed if they'd want to. And they can send that to me at julie.rench, RENCH, @yahoo.com, and I would love to hear what you have or your thoughts and ideals of what you think that you're hearing here. I am completely open and transparent to having other people, their opinions, their thoughts. Have you heard this before? What were you doing when you heard it? Were you on an investigation? Or a lot of times I've had people who hunt say, "Oh my God, I've heard that sound before," and I always wondered what kind of animal that could have been. So it's not just me hearing these things out here in North Carolina.
So why don't we go to the next one? We can fit the next one in before our next break.
Okay. Let's look here.
Is there anything you want to say before we play that?
Yeah, this one I'm gonna play. It's called Compiled Barks, Grunts, Huffs, and Voices. And now, when I say voices, I have recorded on my recorder. I've heard it sounds like talking, unexplained talking. Now, I'm not sure where that's coming from. Not sure that it's Bigfoot related. It just sounds really strange, and that's what my recorder picked up. So that is why David included that in this category. It's the actual category that he has called Barks, Grunts, Huffs, and Voices, that he adds different people's audio to it that he keeps on his and his data on his computer. So again, it's just different sounds and grunts and huffs that I've recorded over time, and let's just give it a listen.
Alrighty. Wow.
Wow.
That, we don't, on Paraversal Universe, we don't play audio clips hardly ever. So we're so glad that you brought this because I love listening to this. Why don't we, is there anything you would like to add to that before we go to our next commercial break?
Just that what people just heard shows up quite a bit over the course of time. And also I wanted to, for as far as David Ellis is concerned, now he's been doing this for 10 years, so he's got quite a bit of experience and going through audio. Just some of those sounds is, I don't know, I've never heard anything like it until I moved here. And I've been out in the woods quite a bit.
All right, everybody. And with that, it is time for our next commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Several U.S. presidents are on record talking about the UFO mystery.
Yeah, Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan both had UFO sightings of their own, but the current presidential campaign might be the first in which UFO disclosure has been championed by a major party candidate.
DIA, CIA, it moves around, is operating a program to train psychic spies to spy and use their powers against Russia. John Ronson writes about this in The Men Who Stare at Goats.
The first known sighting of a ghost took place right after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in the late 1860s during the administration of Ulysses Grant.
Project Paperclip, Clinton releases it all in 1998.
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial.
It's a place where UFO hunters and scientists gather to examine paranormal activity in the region.
Some of the documents, this is bringing Nazi scientists into the United States to work here. So we fought against the Nazis, and it's not, this again is not a revelation. As early as 1947, 1946, we knew some of this, right?
On the paranormal, will we see U.S. President Barack Obama's foreign policy go intergalactic in a quest for gold stolen by aliens? We'll tell you at least how the White House responded to claims the chief executive has been teleporting to Mars. But let's get to today's Capitol account.
UFOs, hauntings, psychic abilities, conspiracy, ESP, cryptozoology. There are many things that remain unexplained in the inexplicable world around us. and we're talking about them here, looking for answers. On WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama. The truth is out there.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Hello everyone, we're back from our commercial break. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on WCET-FM and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek. Before we get back to the show, let's take a quick moment during this hour to specifically mention the radio call dials for the AM/FM terrestrial radio stations who carry Paraversal Universe, including WCET, which is on 101.7 FM out of Columbia, South Carolina, and on High Point Radio, which can be found on 100.5 FM and 1620 AM out of New Jersey, which broadcasts in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. That's all. Hello to all of you who are tuning in over the airwaves. Thank you so much. We're glad you are with us. And we're glad everybody is with us.
As always.
Yes. Whether it's over the airwaves, whether it's on the internet, or perhaps the archives. We're glad you're listening. So this segment is brought to you by the Parasociology Like page on Facebook. Parasociology is a study of how paranormal manifestations and experiences can affect a group, family, or collective. Parasociology also examines how spirituality is practiced in different cultures. So go check that out and leave a like for future content. There are a lot of good articles on that like page concerning different aspects of parasociology. All right, back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are speaking to cryptozoologist Julie Rench from Monster X. Are you still with us, Julie?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right, so we have, I believe, 2 clips yet, correct?
Yes, I believe so. We have the percussive and the compiled crow talker. So I think what we'll do next is play the compiled percussive. It's called compiled percussion. And these are, you will hear some, what they allegedly say are wood knocks, rock clacking together, different things like that. And then there's some unusual vocalizations in there that have some unusual percussive type sounds along with it. It's the best way I can describe it.
Okay. So why don't we roll that, and we'll catch it on the other side.
All right.
I just heard a loud banging from over here. I'm sure that was caught on tape there, or recording rather. I'm not seeing anything, but it sounded kind of like something hit the top of this out barn thing we have over here. It's got a metal roof.
How many creatures do you suppose are in communication with one another?
Well, if they are indeed these creatures...
Or hypothetically, yeah, okay. I stand corrected.
Yeah,
because we don't know for sure. Right.
Whatever is causing these sounds, David Ellis and I have determined there's definitely more than one, because a lot of times we hear something make a sound or a vocalization, and then you get something else answering it from a distance further away, or a different type of vocalization. And, he's saying that it's very similar to audio that he has worked on before from properties where there's actually clans of these things. So, you're talking, could be several, and it could be adults, it could be a juvenile involved. So I do know that a lot of times we've heard banging on the sheds out here when we're actually sitting at the fire pit. Something will bang on one of the sheds back here. Then when we go over to the shed to see what that was, there's absolutely nothing there. So that's kind of a creepy factor. I was told by some people who researched this area and the Uwharrie that a lot of times, because they are very stealthy, they tend to belly crawl up to where you're at, or if they're going to knock on something, they may belly crawl in and belly crawl back out, which is frightening to me.
Right. Okay, so we have one more. And yes. What is that?
This one is called the Compiled Crow Talker, and David named this the Crow Talker sound because it sounds like a 500-pound crow trying to talk in the middle of the night, basically. That's the best way to describe it.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, he's been following this Crow Talker voice not only from here, but from other places over the course of years. And a lot of times, people who send him audio don't even realize that they've caught this because they're not familiar with what this sound could be because it's so unusual. Most people are listening for what they consider like the Ohio howls. They're listening for yells, but these are more deliberate sounds, if you will. And they have a meaning, which we don't know what that is. But
okay. So why don't we
play the clip?
Yep. Cool. Any post thoughts?
What's that?
Any post thoughts to that last clip?
I'm sorry, I still couldn't understand what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any post thoughts?
Oh, post thoughts on. Yeah, I would say to people who hear this stuff, if you're out there in the field investigating and you're hearing this, definitely record this, send it to me. I'll send it off to David Ellis, because he is gathering as much as he can of the audio projects from other people, because the best way to do this is to compare what other people are actually recording out there, and to also look at it through spectrograph to see how they compare visually. You know, I can't stress enough the importance of visually looking at your audio, because you can hear something, and depending on who you are, you're going to hear something different perhaps. But a signature that the actual sound makes will be the same across the board. So, you know, I think audio is important. These things are so elusive that a lot of times all you're going to get is audio. If that wasn't the case, the mystery would be solved by now, and we'd have tons of videos and pictures and you know, verified things that, yeah, these creatures exist. But in the interim, the best that we can do is try to come up with things that have evidence, a value of evidence that you can scientifically compare something to, and audio is one of the best ways to do that.
Agreed.
So while the audio clips were playing, we have some questions for you that rolled in from chat. So the first question is, does Bigfoot have eye shine, glowing eyes at night? And what does this reveal about the potential primate ancestry of Bigfoot? Is Bigfoot even a primate?
You know, that's a very good question. Actually, I've had some dealings here lately talking to some people who have seen these things have red eye shine, blue eye shine, and I'm talking about when there's no real light source on the creature themselves. In other words, it looks like it's illuminating from the eyes. Now, taking that, in order to do that, if something was an illuminating light from its own eyes, I would assume that it would be very problematic for it to be able to even see because of the light. So, and my thinking, and by studying up on, you know, what we know about infrared, what we know about eye shine from animals when you put a flashlight against them, or from the moonlight in their eyes, you know, you can see eye shine from the moonlight in some animals' eyes. What we know about that is it's different to different species, the type of eye shine that they have. And I think the thing that we don't know about these creatures is that what kind of evolutionary development over however many years they've been in existence, in order to travel through the forest at night in complete dark with no light source, your eyes would have to be something more spectacular than what the human eye is capable of doing, in my opinion. So, do they have a way of gathering light source 1,000-fold than what we would be able to? You know, say there's just a little sliver of the moon showing up in the sky. Who's to say that that isn't enough to produce eye shine on their eyes because of the way they are made up? So I don't think it's so much, you know, they've got these demon red glowing eyes, as it is something that was evolutionarily necessary in order for them to be able to hunt at night, because they're so elusive and they do not wish to communicate with people or be a part of our world. A lot of times they probably maneuver around at night more so. So that's just my kind of opinion. But yes, I've heard people from across the country say these things, their eyes were shining and we did not have the flashlight on it. And I believe what they're saying. Have I seen it personally? No, I have not. But I believe the people that have told me that have seen this, I believe them, because, you know, they have no reason to make that part up. If you're going to make up a story about a Sasquatch, why include glowing red eyes?
Well, let's
to me, it's something that I would love for a specimen to be found one day to find answers like that, because that is very intriguing that there is an actual creature out there that can do that.
Well, to take it a step further, do you believe that it's possible that some of these cryptids may have abilities, traits, powers, even, that humans don't possess? Things that may keep them from being discovered?
Well, I mean, we don't know, but I do suspect that they may have capacity that they use in their brains that we're not even familiar with. I mean, we don't even use the whole percentage of our own brains, and who's to know what they're able to do, just a natural thing that they do that we may deem as paranormal, because we don't know what the heck that is.
Right. And powers may be a strong word when I say powers, but I just mean, just anything different than, just something different than what we...
Right, different than what we know about. And the thing, I've heard a lot of people say, I felt zapped when this creature was near me, or they think maybe infrasound has a part to play in it.
Right.
And who's to say they're not projecting something that we are not familiar with as a human being, that it comes natural to them. Another thing I think with the whole zapped thing, I think sometimes with the human evolution, we have the built-in capacity to know fear when we have fear of something, and I think that's a good thing to have. Because, when you're like out in the woods and the hair on the back of your neck stands up and you're not sure why, and then you start looking around, that's probably a good thing, and that's something left over from our Neanderthal days. So, I think that it's very possible that they have abilities that we, would just blow our minds if we knew how they did that. Right.
It's like, like a hammerhead shark being able to find a car battery under the sand, or a snake being able to see infrared, or heat, with the thermal pits.
Okay. And with that, it is time for our last commercial break. You're listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the last segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Alrighty, we're back, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on WCET-FM, High Point Radio, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek, and we're glad you are with us as always. There's some Facebook group pages we want you to check out. The Ultimate Conspiracies group page is one, which is dedicated to conspiracies, crimes, and corruption. Also, check out Lake Monstrosities, dedicated to aquatic mysteries and wonders. Feel free to join them both. We would love to see you there. Each network mentioned has a group and a like page on Facebook as well. So check that out for upcoming content. This segment is brought to you by the 5-star Reader's Choice Award-winning epic fantasy trilogy, Helm, by Robert L. Malek. And back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are speaking with cryptozoologist Julie Rench.
Hello.
Hello.
Everybody.
So, for this last segment, I think I had, as we go along, I jot stuff down. The first thing I jotted out early on was, what is your, how does your family react or respond to your endeavors concerning Bigfoot?
Well, my family, some of them probably think that I'm nuts, but then they hear the audio.
Yeah, we have that too.
And then they hear the audio, and then they don't know what to think about it. I mean, they're blown away as well. They're very open-minded. My mother tells me I'm not allowed to sit out the fire pit at all by myself anymore. She's completely worried that I'm going to end up missing. So, she's always, you're not going back out there in the dark, are you? My husband, Jeff, he is really into it. He's actually my research partner. He is a retired sergeant major from the Army and a former Army Ranger, so it's kind of nice to have him with his knowledge of tracking and being out in the wilderness.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's really good to have around.
Right.
But yeah, my nephew, who's in his early 30s, was staying here with us because he had switched jobs, and he was staying here with us until he could bring the rest of the family into the area, and he had heard my audio. He wasn't sure what to make of it, but he decided he would sit out the fire pit with me. This has been about 2 weeks ago. So we're sitting out the fire pit, just him and I, and it's dark. And I'm like, he's talking about the wood knocks, and I said, well, I've never done any wood knocks here because I don't know what that means to anything that's listening. I don't know if it means come get me or I'm coming to you or, I don't know how they perceive it. And he's like, well, let's give it a try. And I thought, well, okay, let's give it this try and see if anything happens. Well, he did these 3 wood knocks, and then, yeah, everything kind of blew open that night. We had rocks thrown at us. We heard whistling, back and forth whistling coming from behind the sheds. We heard movement. we heard something walk through the yard in the dark, and we're like, no. He looks at me. It was probably about 12:30ish, 1 o'clock in the morning. He looks at me, and he goes, I think we should go in now. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably a good idea, because it was getting closer and louder, and, my main priority is safety. So, yeah, we came in, and, we went back outside on one of the other decks from where we were at the fire pit, at the back deck. We went out there, and we were standing on the deck talking, and we heard another knock and another whistle, probably about 15 minutes after we came in. And the audio that was left out overnight, after we came in, I'm still working on analyzing all that audio from that night to see what else was captured after we came in. But yeah, it's kind of amped up, and my nephew is now a believer.
So we have one more question for you from the chat room. Have you used directional microphones to be able to triangulate a location where the sound is coming from and to plot it on a map?
Yes, we have. Actually, my team that I work with, they've come here and investigated quite a bit, and we have a lot of different type of equipment that they bring with them. That particular device they're talking about there, they have 3 of those that we leave out. We also have the, I call it bionic ear. We have one of those set up attached to the to a PC, so we're getting the audio in real time, and as it's coming in, we're actually analyzing it through the spectrograph in real time. So, we do that frequently. We do have night vision. I have night vision. I have different trail cams set up around the property that are the night out ones that do not project any light when the picture's being taken. However, I think that they are able to somehow know that these game cams are out there. I don't know how. That's a whole nother show. But we do take the audio very serious, and we do a lot of different type of investigating when they're here. We have FLIR that's in mock bird houses projected out there where they can't see the actual equipment. So yeah, that's a good question. We do pay attention to that as well.
That's awesome. That putting all that effort into trying to collect evidence and data, how about we haven't really touched on equipment at all until now. You had mentioned some of the equipment, drones.
Mm-hmm.
Have you with the cryptid group, the Carolina Cryptid Research Group?
Yes, we do utilize drones. We have the Bushnell night vision cameras. We have FLIR. We have thermal. What we do is we have some of the equipment on tripods, and we run it down to a monitor screen that we can actually watch what's going on outside while you're in the tent. So that way, once everybody's in for the night, you can still monitor any movement going on out there. We also, around my house, where we put some of our equipment, I leave up neon, like your LED Christmas lights, if you will. I leave those wrapped around the outside of my deck all year long, so that it kind of camouflages the IR light from our equipment. So they're not, they're used to seeing lights out there. So we do utilize different type of the LED lighting to try to camouflage our equipment. We also do it from inside the house through the window. and where we have the LED lights around the window. So that, we're trial and error on different things to try to camouflage the infrared light, because we're pretty sure they can see that. More than not, we've had experiences where we believe they can.
What?
It's the speaker system. Speaker system, hold on. No, it's the box.
So yeah, it's a process that we're working on, and if people want to find out more about what's going on here, hear more audio, they can come on over to Monster X Radio, go into the archive shows. I've done some archive shows with Gunnar Monson, our other host, one of our other hosts, and talking about the property here, and we also discuss a lot of it in our exclusive Monster exclusive group, and you can join that by going to monsterxradio.com. That's where we really get into a lot of the nuts and bolts of what's going on here. Now, I don't share everything publicly, what's going on here, because I don't want people to try to come here and find out where I'm at and then something bad happening. Like trespassing on my property would not be a good idea.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus, you don't want people messing with you and your research.
Right. I don't want any thing going on that people come in here and trying to hoax me, if you will. So, I wanted to share some of this audio, however, with you guys and the public, because my goal is to have people come forward and share their audio as well. And again, send it to me at my email, julie.rench@yahoo.com, if you'd be so kind. Because a lot of people may have stuff that they don't share because they're afraid to be ridiculed about it, and they may not know how to analyze it properly. And, David Ellis and I would love to do that.
That's awesome. And we should, one more time, because we're on the airwaves in the Carolinas, mention the Carolina Cryptid Research Group. If anyone in the Carolinas listening, you can contact them as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, we do have a Facebook page, Carolina Cryptid Field Research. You can follow us on there. We also have a YouTube channel by the same name. And, if you want to join Monster X Radio Facebook group, you can find us on Facebook. We have a fan page for that as well. And like I said, in the exclusive group is where a lot of our research, not only myself, but Shane Corson, Gunnar Monson, Craig Yanni, and Thomas Seawood all share what's going on in the field with all of us.
Yes, all experienced Bigfoot researchers and respected. Julie, we've run out of time. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on, taking 2 hours out of your time, bringing the audio for everyone to listen to, and sharing
your experiences.
Right.
And your research. We greatly appreciate it.
Sure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, we enjoyed it very much. Let's see. So, we'd like to thank cryptozoologist Julie Rench from Monster X for being such an awesome guest.
My pleasure.
Next week we will have on Trey Hudson.
Yes.
So tune in for that. Feel free to support the network. Any of the networks mentioned here tonight, as well as the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, 501c3 nonprofit organization, by donating. It's folks like you who ensure that these excellent organizations will be here tomorrow. To the believer, the evidence is overwhelming.
And to the skeptic, there will never be enough.
Thank you. Good night. God bless you. Everyone have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you here next time.
Good night, everyone.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.